Hello and welcome to this presentation, taking a look at how I used artificial intelligence for gait analysis. Most notably the SLAPE application, which is accessed by your iPhone or smartphone, and how it's recorded to observe horses' asymmetry movements both on the straight and on the lunge. So a little bit about myself. I've been a registered farrier since 2006 and I'm a holder of many postgraduate farriery qualifications that assess your ability to perform corrective farriery and perform research techniques. So this has took me around the University of Central Lancashire and also the Royal Veterinary College. I'm a notable author as well. I've had 60 hoof care articles published all around the world. Lecturer at veterinary school as well, teaching the veterinary surgeons of the future about farriery and hoof care. Provide continual professional development clinics for farriers and vets all around the UK, and also I'm a farrier examiner for endpoint assessment of the farrier apprenticeship. So when we work together for the good of the horse, it creates a good collaborative effort between farriers, vets, nutritionists, dentists, physios, grooms, saddle fitters and riders, all to name but a few that are involved in the well-being of the horse. And it's important we do create a collaborative effort because there may be certain aspects of what we see on our appointments which can pick up on subtle changes that can be influenced elsewhere by the input of others in our professions. So if we all don't work together, the cogs don't turn, and this is where something like this SLAPE application can work really well when sharing ideas that correspond and coalesce across different subject matters. So can we diagnose lamenesses as farriers? Well, we can see this horse here trotting up and we can see a notable lameness here. And is it really right that we can assess lamenesses? Well, we can have an opinion of whether a horse is sound or not sound. One thing we probably can't do is to diagnose the specific pathologies involved with the lamenesses. So for instance, we can't be diagnosing navicular syndrome or soft tissue suspensory injuries, for example, as they require extreme knowledgeable diagnostics such as radiographs and MRI scanners, ultrasound scanners, which we don't really have the access to. We can obviously get the imagery post assessment. But it is fair to say if we can see a lame horse that requires further attention, we can have an opinion and say, yes, this horse is lame, we need further investigation. And we all know the issue with impersonal interpretation of horses' movements is that any of us can take the horse to a side and watch them trot and lunge. And a lot of people, if we can stare at them long enough, we can make them lame or make them look like they're lame, make us consider that they're lame. So yeah, it is something that personal interpretation can bring about different findings in between different people and what we see in front of us. So there needs to be a standardization of how to interpret the horse's movement that can be standardized to within an accurate measure and then subsequently sent away for further diagnostic techniques to then improve the movement of a horse, which sometimes can just involve stretching exercises, as simple as that, but sometimes may involve more extreme techniques such as going for MRI scanning. So in the past, aside from watching horses trot up and using slow motion video footage, I've also been involved with the use of IMU sensors for detecting vertical displacement on the horse, and these are the previous ones we're using. This not to pick up on any particular brand, but these are the two most common ones where we can see we get attached sensors to the sacrum, to the tubercoxide, to the wither and to the pole. Okay, and sometimes they can be connected to a pastern as well, with different type of sensor application. These are all incredibly expensive for the initial outlay of purchasing these. And the few things you are relying upon are a dry day, because the last thing you want is these to get wet, particularly if you're using a computer on site to correspond the findings from IMU sensors to the computer. You want to dry somewhere dry and under cover to work on the horses. Although the pouches at these are are fairly watertight, they're not completely water sealed, so you are worried about those getting wet and potentially becoming damaged. You want repeatable measurements, and that's not always possible if you're using personal palpation to locate the source of these sensors, because they contain gyroscopes and inertial measures, and certainly personal application can sometimes lead to an unrepeatable measurement if it's been repeatable over a period of time previously. And also you're requiring a well-behaved horse. So the last thing you want is always any horses to start galloping around or bronking around with very expensive equipment attached. You're very much worried about that getting damaged. So that is the issue with what's gone before us, although it has been very useful. As well, the output of these findings as well can sometimes be a little bit difficult to interpret to the horse owner unless you're an advanced clinician. The output can sometimes be a little bit tricky to understand. So this is where the use of the SLAPE application really does come in well, because all you require really is a tripod and an iPhone, and this can be performed anywhere effectively, as long as you've got a flat level surface is ideal for repeatable measures and reliable measures. And the thing I really like about this application now more than ever is the fact it can be done remotely. So it's great to get an in-person measurement, but if you want to see how a horse progresses over time, then the fact that the owner can download a horse owner version of the app to upload imagery to your computer, to your phone, where you can then have the findings to send to them, and also share with those fellow professionals that we discussed earlier with the collaborative effort for the well-being of a horse. Sometimes you may send the findings to the physio or to the vet or to the saddle fitter, depending on the asymmetry present. So that is a very useful part of this application, and that's something I use quite a lot of really. But the fact this can be done in all kinds of weathers and all kinds of behaved horses, and can be done many times over without the aforementioned potential issues that could take place, is very beneficial to everybody involved. So here's an example of a horse having an assessment using a SLAPE. So this is my phone placed on a tripod, watching this horse trot away. Okay, we're looking for vertical displacement. Okay, so we're seeing if the head is being held in the air at any point during an impact or push off. And it also assesses the hind limb as well. So a nice flat level surface or indoor, we can clearly see. It doesn't need to be well lit, but then that always makes for a good assessment anyway. You can see horses move nice and clearly. What we've got to call the bullseyes on the right hand side, the dartboards showing each individual strike, each individual stride, and how it corresponds to the level of asymmetry present. Okay, the vertical displacement graph underneath as well shows you how much variation there is between the strides, and if it's nice and fluid and tight like behind, you've got less issues than what you have in front. So when we're seeing a horse move towards us, we're making note of the vertical displacement of the poll on impact and push off, and we can see that with a diagram on the right there. We're looking for the up and down movement and the fluidity of the stride. Of course, the trot is a 2-beat symmetrical gait, so that's the reason why we use trot as our assessment rather than walk, because walk is not a symmetrical gait. Okay, it has lots of variation at all times. So a trot is a 2-beat diagonal symmetrical gait, and if it's not symmetry is imposed upon that gait, we know there's an issue somewhere within the horse's body. And so when we go to trot away, you can see these red dots there, they reflect the tuber coxae, which is the part that juts out at the pelvis. We can palpitate with our hands when stood behind the horse. We can see it stick out from the side as well on some certain horses and some certain breeds. Again, we're looking for vertical displacement of the left and right hind in terms of impact and push off. So this gives an indicator really of where we are looking for, because what it effectively shows us is if there's any sort of asymmetry present in terms of the hip hike, and if there's any lameness present, whether it requires further investigation. So the levels of asymmetry. Now this can vary, and I like to use this bars really as a comparative to like a lameness scale. So we can a lot of the time have lameness 1 to 5. So if there's no lameness present, the colour bar is grey, no asymmetry. You go from green into yellow, into orange, into red. Now, historically, that was noted as being severe lameness, or severe asymmetry, I should say. But recently they changed it now to pronounced. So it shows you how all the time this software is constantly being updated and improved, and new ideas that are filtered in to head office have been formulated, and they help to improve the app further for the end user as well. And I think that's a fantastic thing. The output is very easy to understand as well. So when we see the output, a lot of the time we can see the general findings, and this is how we use this slate bend to monitor a horse over a period of time. So we can see an objectivable, repeatable measure is used. Okay, so this is a particular horse that had quite a severe right forelimb lameness. The owner was out of insurance and was previously had a navicular issue with this horse, and for a few years been going quite well. However, a severe lameness developed earlier on this year, and just wanting to see if anything we could perhaps do to help this horse. So I thought, well, realistically, we need to monitor this horse's gait pattern over a period of time. So I did an initial assessment on the 2nd of February there, and we can see a pronounced, quite a high-end asymmetry of a right front in terms of impact and push-off. So from my own perspective as a farrier, I felt that I could improve this horse by using the shoeing on the right, which is a heel pad. Now, various different ways to overcome various different lamenesses. I'm not here today to tell you which type of shoe to use or what type of package to use, because it's very individual to the horse. However, this particular option really helped this horse. And what we did then, reassess the horse 2 weeks later remotely. So I can keep in contact with the owner. They can use the horse owner version of the SLAPE to monitor the vertical displacement, and as we can see, we've seen an improvement. Okay, so we've seen an improvement. It's gone from pronounced to mild, so the scale of asymmetry is reduced within 2 weeks. So that gives us a justification everything's going well. This of course was sent to the horse's vet, just so they can see where we're progressing to in case we do need to go down to further diagnostics. But then a further 2 weeks later, repeated again, and an increased amount of strides, just because we're much more confident in terms of the horses improving. And we can clearly see that there, very mild push-off asymmetry from the right hind. That's all that's left there now. That horse is ready to start work. That horse is now sound, and we have the data and the evidence to show that. In terms of the raw data, we look at the output here. We can see the bars show the level of asymmetry at the top. Okay, so initially started off very much in the red, before then going into the yellow and then into the green. Okay, we look at the stride patterns underneath in terms of the vertical displacement, and we can see the right front there. The head has been suspended in the air, trying to take weight off that limb and that hoof. Okay, we can see it's starting to clean up a little bit by the time we get to the 16th. And then by the time we get to the 3rd, we've got loads of overlapping stride patterns. We can see the level of vertical displacement is reduced, and we can see much fluid stride, and again that leads to a sound and comfortable horse. And let me just show you a case study as well in terms of how shoeing packages can help to influence the findings as well, and how we can help improve horses. So here is a horse we have with an asymmetrical pelvis. We can see the left tuberococci is higher than the right tuberococci. Again, the owner didn't really have the funds to go down the route of radiographing and MRIing and ultrasounding and bone scanning. So this is a collaborative effort between me and a physiotherapist. We can see that the findings here of a left hind and right front diagonal asymmetry. Okay, push off and impact was affecting this horse, and we can see that with the findings on the right in terms of the severity levels, and also in terms of the fluidity of the stride underneath. So yeah, the left hind and right front. So my approach to this particular horse was as such. In front, we can see an asymmetry of heel heights. To begin with, we've got the pre-shoeing on the top image and the post-shoeing underneath. And basically just engaged the whole foot rather than the outer perimeter in using a part leather, part synthetic frog support pad, wide web shoe, and trimming the feet to the corresponding requirements of each individual hoof. Okay, so again, I'm not here to try and tell you what's right, what's wrong. This is my own personal interpretation of these feet and what I consider the best path to go with. And in terms of the hind feet, well, we see two different styles of pads here. So for the left hind, which is already higher, I used a flat full sole frog support pad with a 20 short impression material, so it's nice and soft and loading upon there. And on the right hind, I used a 3-degree graduated frog support pad, again the same type of impression material, 20 shore hardness. And what this did, it helped to level up the tubercoxi heights, so that basically allowed for the upper body to work in a symmetrical pattern and allowed the soft tissues around that structure to be healing as well. Again, combining that with good physiotherapy and careful exercise. So we can see pre-shoeing to post-shoeing. Okay, if we're being completely critical, you wouldn't say it's completely symmetrical in the post-shoeing, but it's certainly an improvement from the pre. So the idea is to get the upper limb to function in a symmetrical pattern and hopefully then to take a bit of the diagonal asymmetry out of the right front as well. So, short period of time, we can see the initial findings show a left hind mild put-off asymmetry and the right front as well with the impact and push-off. This all showed marked improvement at that time, and when it came to the subsequent shoeing, repeated the assessment and that flagged up no asymmetry present whatsoever. So very good outcome for this horse, and very delighted that it's something as simple as that we can use this application for Farriery, because it gives us a justification for our corrective Farriery protocols to basically try and impose symmetry on an asymmetrical structure and to allow the horse to have much more fluid movement. Okay. Look at the raw data. We can see there how on the bars at the top we've gone from a yellow to a green. You know, we can see the asymmetry bars reducing over a very short period. We can see the vertical displacement lines underneath, they're really cleaning up as well. Okay, so again, when we get to the bars on the hind feet, the vertical displacement line, sorry, on the right hand side, you can see them really tight knit together. But also as well, on the front and the forelimb, they're tightening up, but there's obviously far more asymmetry there as well. So, one thing I like to bring to your attention is I do tend to use this a lot in conjunction with other systems, and I think this is where the main strength of a slope system really is, for a Farriery perspective as well, because the more evidence we have, the more data we have, the more we got to back up our protocols, and the more we can also protect ourselves a little bit in terms of the justifications we choose. Okay, so what I'm going to share with you now is a particular horse that was referred to me by the veterinary surgeon, who does have a left hind limb and the right forelimb issue, but mostly the left hind was a main thing for me. Okay, I know his horse had historically suspensory issues, and subsequently was a good high performing show horse, so I wanted to make sure I could cover all bases. So using the Sleep app, I also use that in conjunction with a hoofbeat system which monitors hoof flight with IMU sensors attached to the foot. Okay, and we're seeing how these overlap a little bit each other. So looking at the images below from the hoofbeat system, we can see the left hind's got an asymmetrical loading pattern compared to the right hind. Okay, we can see it landing lateral side first before rolling over and then breaking forwards, whereas the right hind is a far more normal, what I consider to be a normal lateral heel first contact before then having a stable stance aid and breakover taking place. We can see an asymmetry of height as well on the left bar, on the left graph there, in terms of the hoof height. So there's many aspects to this of this horse to assess. And of course then we use radiographs, and unsurprisingly we have a negative plantar angle, which probably then shows the corresponding movement asymmetry. And then using the Metron system as well, we can take imagery of the hooves and also the radiographs, and to collate that into a report, creating a full and interpretive view of the horse's movement, and from a static and dynamic perspective. Okay, so what this does then, these all generate reports with the slate report, the hoofbeat report, and a Metron report as well. We can have easily up to 60 pages worth of data on these horses to send again to everybody involved in the horse, whether it's the rider, the owner, the trainer, the physiotherapist, the veterinary surgeon. You know, we're all involved in the well-being of the horse, so we can put this all together. And that's where I feel the biggest strength of this application is in with conjunction with all the others, because quite a lot of the time everything overlaps and everything comes together as one. So I would like to say thank you for listening to my presentation, and if you'd like to learn more about biomechanics and the structures of the hoof and how shoeing can influence movement, then do check out my book, The Hoof Care Companion, which is available at my website www.thefarrier.co.uk.